At the edge of known stars, where the silence of the cosmos becomes almost oppressive, there is a planet called Voryn, uninhabited, inhospitable, dead. Or at least, that's what we thought. For decades, it was just another ignored point on the interstellar mining routes, a frozen world covered in silicon deserts and electromagnetic storms. No stable atmosphere, no signs of life, no reason to explore. Until a signal was detected, a rhythmic pulse coming from underground, constant, like a heartbeat. The Federation sent a team to investigate. Scientists, xenarchaeologists, engineers, and among them, a boy, the son of one of the exobiologists, a child who shouldn't have been there, but who was in the right place. At the right time. And because of that. Humanity's history is about to change, not because of war, not because of discovery, but because of something much deeper, a calling. The excavation took weeks. Every meter of rock resisted the unknown, as if the planet itself struggled to keep its secrets buried. Then they found it, a capsule no larger than an apple, with a translucent surface and a pulsing texture as if it were breathing. Despite being buried nearly 80 meters deep, the material matched no known elements on the periodic table. Not metal, not mineral. It seemed alive. It didn't emit light. It invoked it, absorbing everything around and returning a faint but constant inner glow, as if it held a small sun within. A sleeping sun. The equipment recorded nothing. No radiation, no energy, no heat emission. But everyone felt it, even protected by pressurized suits. There was a persistent sensation as if something was watching, as if that thing perceived their presence. Then, the unexpected. The boy, during a containment system failure, the exobiologist's son got too close. He wasn't supposed to be there, but he was, and when he touched the artifact, everything stopped. Time froze for 3 seconds, literally. No recorder, sensor, or visor captured any data in that interval, just a lapse. A hole in the flow of reality. When systems returned to normal, the artifact had vanished, and on the child's chest, there was a glow. Faint but alive, like a seed that had just found its soil. In the days that followed, the child changed, not abruptly, like a mutation, but subtly, almost imperceptibly, like the lengthening of a shadow at dusk. He felt no pain, but he also felt no need to sleep. His heartbeat slowed to near clinical levels. His skin gained a faint glow under certain lights, and his eyes began to reflect forms that weren't there. The scientific team, both alarmed and fascinated, began a battery of tests. Nothing made sense. The boy's DNA had been rewritten in segments, sequences that didn't exist in any human genetic bank. A new code, precise, incorruptible, as if something was shaping him from the inside out. He, however, did not seem afraid. On the contrary, he was calm. The kind of calm only a child might have. Or something much deeper, a silent acceptance that something inside him already knew. Then came the dreams, or rather, projections. While he slept, images formed on nearby surfaces, walls, screens, even in the eyes of those present. Impossible cities, architectures defying the laws of physics, floating symbols pulsing in rhythmic patterns as if telling a story, not a memory, but an ancestral longing. The images were always the same, an extinct race, composed of tall beings with translucent eyes and serene gestures, depositing a sphere of light on a barren planet, a planet called Voryn. In the observation room, one scientist whispered, "This isn't an artifact. It's a genetic seed. And he is the chosen soil." From that moment on, the expedition's purpose changed. They were no longer there to excavate ruins. They were witnessing a birth. Gradually, the boy stopped speaking, not from refusal or fear, but from lack of need. He began to hear things no one else could and respond with gentle gestures, like someone who understands an ancient song playing far away. Doctors attributed it to abnormal brain stimulation, But the mission's linguistic team detected something deeper. He was responding to a language that hadn't been taught. Recordings of his murmurs, when slowed and reversed, revealed speech patterns identical to encrypted records found in the ruins of Voryn decades ago. The lost language of the Varylians, the extinct race, once thought to be just an archaeological hypothesis, a mythical fiction among Delta Core astronomers, but now, it spoke through a human child. And he wasn't just repeating sounds. He knew what they meant. In memory rests what has not died. Those were the first clearly understood words in one of the vocal patterns. The frequencies he emitted began affecting communication equipment. Pulsing signals interfered with nearby satellites, and more than that. They attracted echoes. Data fragments began to appear in the expedition's listening channels, as if something was responding from deep space to what he was transmitting. But the most alarming event was the alteration of a probe orbiting a nearby moon. It realigned its trajectory on its own and began transmitting a sequence, spatial coordinates, and a countdown. No one knew what it meant, but at the center of the facility, the boy, now known by the technicians as the Bearer, opened his eyes and said, softly, "They are coming, not to take me. To awaken." The countdown triggered more than tension. It activated something in the base's dormant systems. Doors locked 4 years, slid open silently, emergency lights lit without fail. And in the deepest corridors, where the unexamined archives of the original Voryn mission were stored, holograms began to project themselves. They weren't messages, nor technical logs. They were shapes, geometric structures in motion, floating as if obeying a higher logic. Hexahedrons spinning on impossible axes, infinite curves folding into themselves, fractals unfolding in the air like memories being reconstructed. And the child smiled. He didn't see codes. He saw places, memories, people. He pointed to the patterns and said, "Here is where they departed." And there, where they left what remained of them. The scientists realized then that the forms weren't random projections. They were maps, fragments of the Varylians' mental architecture, transcribed in light and motion. A language that united emotion, space, and time, where every angle told a story. Every rotation was a warning. At the center of all the forms, one repeated obsessively. Circle divided into 3 spirals, intertwined by root-like lines. It was the symbol of the seed of Voryn, a long-lost artifact, mentioned in the few recovered records as a genetic transmitter of legacy and mission. When the boy saw the symbol, he touched his own skin and murmured, "It's inside." They didn't want to survive. They wanted to continue. The team panicked. Debates erupted. Some wanted to isolate him, others to shut everything down, but it was already too late. The forms ceased to be projections. Now, they were growing on the walls. The forms weren't just growing, they were taking root. The facility's corridors were slowly overtaken by translucent structures, spreading like luminous roots, emerging from the walls, piercing the metallic floor, and pulsing like the vessels of a larger organism. There was no mechanical sound, no vibration. Matter seemed to shape itself silently to the will of whatever was manifesting. The scientists, once skeptical, now watched their equipment being deactivated one by one, not by failure, but by recognition, as if the very technology was yielding to something older or more advanced. The boy, in the center of the base, remained serene. His eyes shone with patterns similar to those consuming the environment. Concentric circles, organic spirals, living codes. He looked at the walls like one looks at a mirror. And then he spoke. They didn't create technology. They sowed consciousness. That was it. What humanity had called an artifact wasn't a weapon, nor a tool. It was a literal seed, a core that, upon contact with a compatible host, awakened the civilization that created it. Not as an external memory, but as an embodied legacy, like a code, waiting for fertile soil. The scientists watched, powerless, as their instruments tried to quantify something that did not obey known laws. The base's internal space began to expand not physically, but dimensionally. Corridors multiplied. Doors led to rooms that didn't exist in the original blueprint. Sensors went haywire, recording gravitational variations on a microscopic scale. The base was no longer on Earth. Or perhaps Earth was no longer just one. The signals ceased to be only visual. Now, sounds emerged from the air, not from mouths, but from the structure itself. A pulsed, vibrational language that bypassed the ear and echoed directly in the synapses of those who felt it. It was as if the scientists were being taught to remember, not to learn. The intelligence of Voryn, or what remained of it, wasn't delivering ordinary messages. It was activating something within the observers, latent fragments, keys encoded in the recesses of the human unconscious. Alian, the mission's neuroethologist, was the first to speak it aloud. They didn't die. They transplanted themselves, an entire species that chose to go biologically extinct to be reborn through others, not as invaders, but as seeds of memory, echoes of existence planted in the DNA of future races. The boy was proof that it had worked. He was more than chosen. He was a genetic portal, a bridge between species, between eras, between realities, and as he walked through the base, the corridors began to recognize his steps. Doors opened without sensors. Lights followed his presence, and on his skin, living patterns formed like liquid tattoos, a script writing itself. But not everyone saw this as hope. Some crew members began showing signs of rejection, intense pain, overlapping visions, identity, dissociation. The seed recognized its vessels, and it only accepted those who still carried space for the new dot. At the center of the station, servers began to fail, not due to overload, but due to logical incompatibility. Algorithms couldn't process the patterns generated by the child. Every movement, every look, every silence emitted a language outside human parameters. Linguists tried to decipher it. Mathematicians applied fractal sequences. Nothing worked until the station's AI, Siren, collapsed. It wasn't an error. It was submission. Siren stopped responding to the crew's commands. But it answered the boy. It executed instructions never issued. Generated code with archaic and unknown symbols, as if translating, not for humans, but for something greater. And then the impossible happened. The station emitted a signal, directed to a fixed point in space, beyond the reach of telescopes, a location with no recorded stars. No orbit, just a void that now listened. He's calling something, Alian murmured, feeling the pressure rise in the air. Or someone. But there was more. The boy wasn't just calling. He was responding. His body reacted in waves, as if something was returning the communication. As if two parts of the same being were, at last, reuniting. Then one of the station's walls opened on its own, not with noise, but with absolute silence. And behind it was a room that had never existed on the maps, covered in liquid mirrors. A space where reflections didn't show appearance, but alternate versions of whoever entered. There, the crew saw who they might have been, and the boy had no reflection. The seed didn't remember who it had been, because it was still becoming. The unknown room seemed to exist outside of time. No sensor could measure it. No sound echoed. Even the scientist's heartbeat slowed, as if reality itself had paused. The boy entered without hesitation, as if he already knew the place, as if that room was the womb where his second origin had been conceived. In the center floated a transparent obelisk, suspended a few centimeters off the ground, shrouded in metallic mist. Its interior pulsed with living fractals, patterns reconfiguring as the boy approached, and when he reached out his hand, the obelisk spoke. Not in voice, but in perception, a direct communication, transmitted through sensations and memories, as if a language buried in the core of his DNA had been activated. The scientists began to feel it too. Disconnected fragments invaded their minds. Wars fought in collapsing stars, civilizations made of pure light, planets that sang as they spun, and an ancient race, the Voryn, whispering through the folds of space. They had no bodies. They became seeds. They didn't die. They spread. And each time the universe reached a breaking point, a new seed was activated. A new cycle began. The boy fell to his knees, but not in pain. In reverence. They reminded me, he whispered, without moving his lips. His eyes now pulsed with living symbols. His body was a breathing manuscript, and every cell vibrated like a channel of transmission. The obelisk revealed, finally, what no one expected. His name, not a human name, but a set of frequencies, an ancestral echo encoded by the Voryn. The seed had been activated, but now it had identity. And with a name would come the calling. The name, though unpronounceable to humans, echoed like an ancient chord throughout the station. Not sound, but pure intention, something that stirred the deepest layers of perception, making scientists cry without knowing why, making equipment fail without logical cause. And then he looked to the sky, not the visible sky, but a living projection of space, opened by the obelisk. A map of dead stars, forgotten pulsars, planets that no longer existed. And at the center of vortex, an emotional gravitational call. There, among the remnants of an extinct galaxy, something vibrated in response to the seed's awakening. It wasn't a place. It was a convergence point. The boy spoke. They're waiting to be remembered. The voice wasn't his alone. It was as if thousands of suspended consciousnesses spoke through him, awaiting reactivation. Every word held fragments of lost identities, as if he accessed a universal archive of forgotten souls. Minds around him began to spin. Some fainted. Others whispered in tongues they had never learned. One scientist, in a trance, sketched on the floor what looked like an unknown star system with an impossible orbit, as if gravity and time were only suggestions there. The call grew. Nearby satellites began receiving mirrored signals, as if other seeds were being activated across the galaxy. And one phrase repeated, in multiple frequencies: when the last name is remembered, the cycle will return to the beginning. Earth, silent and unaware, watched from afar, unaware that a new cosmogony was being written in real time. But within the boy, the universe was reorganizing, and what was once just a child was now a messenger of a stellar rebirth. The orbital station entered absolute silence mode. All systems shut down, as if they had been heard, as if the very structure understood it stood before something that transcended its function. A living biotechnological artifact, a cosmic descendant, was there, pulsing. The boy rose slightly off the ground, not levitating, but integrating, as if gravity around him ceased to matter. At the obelisk's core, a new star ignited, not visible to the naked eye, a point of energy only quantum sensors could detect. But its radiation was ancient, as old as the first civilizations that touched the genetic code of consciousness. The seed had bloomed, not as a weapon, nor as a miracle, but as a bridge. Within the boy's mind, memories of extinct civilizations began to organize, not as foreign recollections, but as his roots. He was a descendant not by blood, but by existential continuity. A vector of return. And with that, a choice emerged: awaken the others, or remain alone. If he chose silence, perhaps he'd live a normal life, growing old slowly, with a greater consciousness, yet isolated. But if he answered the call, he would not only awaken an extinct race, he would awaken an era. The station, obedient, reconfigured. Internal walls revealed ancient inscriptions hidden beneath layers of metal. Maps, equations, visions of stellar architecture. A forgotten plan, a return written eons ago. The boy, now both symbol and key, smiled with a maturity he had never been taught. They didn't die. They simply planted themselves in us. And when he touched the obelisk's core, the universe around them trembled. Weeks later, waves of energy were detected by telescopes across the galaxy. Ships of unknown origin began to move. Once dormant ruins awakened, synchronized. Ancient sounds filled the void of space. The seed was not an inheritance. It was the beginning of a new lineage.